You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, you're running's over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, don't murder by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
Warning, this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own two eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. Y'all, I'm going to tell you a story today. Happened where I'm from, 6 generations of my family and everything else, and it's a really, really crazy story, and I don't believe it's ever been covered before, but I've been thinking about it for a while. We're going to call this episode Reign of Terror in Clinton, okay? So, I'm originally from East Louisiana Parish in the town of Clinton, and you know, that's where I was born and raised. Well, I wasn't born. I was born in Baton Rouge, but I was raised there. And my daddy was raised there. And my grandfather was the judge there until he passed away. And just my whole life. And I still go through there 3 or 4 times a week now when I go to my country place. I'm going to tell you a crazy story, all right? And then all these people, I know them. My family knows them. I know the law enforcement officers that work the case, and I just got off the phone with one of them, Joel Odom, and just a crazy, crazy story. But I'll take you back to October the 4th in 1998, and between 5:15 p.m. and 5:40 p.m., a guy named Gregory C. Brown, along with a Jonathan Booth and a Brian Risen and a Brian Williams and Eldred Thompson, decided they were traveling. They were going to come from Baton Rouge to go to Clinton to rob a dope dealer named Little Man. Now, Little Man lived in what we call Rileyville in Clinton, and that's just behind the school I graduated from and everything. It's a mostly black community but it's still inside the town limits of Clinton, okay? But when you ride into Rileyville, there's only one street in and one street out, and then it kind of spreads out into the neighborhood. So these idiots, you know, know that Little Man was we'll say allegedly, but he was a dope dealer, all right? And what do dope dealers do, or dope heads do? They rob dope dealers when they get the chance because they don't have the money to do anything else. So they drove from Baton Rouge to Clinton, which is like 45 minutes, y'all, and they were in a 1984 gray Chevrolet van, which was registered in Brown's name. okay? And so they get there and they go driving to Rileyville, and being the geniuses that they are, they think they're going to little man's house. Well, they pull up. Actually, it was a trailer, I believe. So it was on Wilson Street. It's in back in, like I said, Rileyville. Okay, and they pull up the house where they thought the little man lived, and Jonathan Booth entered the house unarmed. Y'all, I guess he was just going to strong arm rob him, but he had the wrong house, and when he entered it, he sees a guy named Davy Thompson. Now, Davy Thompson definitely was not a dope dealer. He was actually a correctional officer. Sorry about that. Oh. He was actually a correctional officer. And so when they enter the trailer, Davy Thompson is there. And now he's not related to Eldridge Thompson. I told y'all is one of the bad guys that drove from Baton Rouge. And when they're in there, Booth says, hey, dude, where's little man? And Thompson said, hey, little man's not here. And so Booth then turned around and he leaves the trailer, right? I mean, you think it's over with? Exact opposite. He leaves the trailer and went and got a pistol. And then he comes back inside the trailer with the pistol and he attacked Thompson. They fought, and it was like a pretty severe scuffle. I mean, they were rolling around, et cetera. And Thompson managed to get the pistol away from Booth. But they were still fighting, right? And while they're fighting for control of the pistol, somehow it's believed that Brown actually was able to pull the trigger, and Thompson got shot in the thigh. Then, while they're still fighting, and now Thompson is shot in the leg, they're still fighting for the pistol. Thompson was able to squeeze the pistol, and he shot Booth in the upper arm, right? And Booth hauls ass back outside where the other four idiots are, and they jump in the van, and they haul ass out of Rileyville. Now, there's one... When you get to the end of Rileyville, you could have turned on Highway 10 back at the time and took a right, and you're right there in the town of Clinton. But they took the other way in what we call Marston Street. Marston Street runs by the Confederate Cemetery and where the health unit is and all that, but it's not really any houses on that street, but you have the health unit, and it's a small blacktop road. There's not even a divider line on it, and it's got a couple of sharp turns. But it comes up a hill right by the Marston House Plantation, which is, I don't know, been there since probably the Civil War times. But there's an intersection right there, and they shoot across the intersection, and they run over a white Toyota Camry. They crashed, and I was talking to Joel Odom, who was a sergeant at this time for the Clinton Police Department, and now he's something over investigations for the Department of Corrections. But so I called him. I said, "Tell me about that day." And he said, "Man, it was freaky because they almost like jumped from coming up that hill and landed on top of the car." And he said it was a total smash, crash, accident to the point where the doors were jammed, and he said they had to climb out the windows of the vehicle, and they took off on foot, right? So, so Brown and Booth, and Booth is the one that had been shot in the arm, y'all, and then the rest of them got into the crash right where I told you, at the corner of Bank and Marston Street. And because they ran the they ran the stop sign, but it's a steep incline. I guess they ran up the side of this Toyota Camry, who was driven by Miss Sarah Cheney, who was 68 years old at the time. And like I said, the van was disabled. climb out the windows, and they all haul ass. They ran like little bitches into the nearby wooded area. Well, someone called the cops and told them, or they called the sheriff's office, who handled 911 dispatcher not only for East Feliciana Parish Sheriff's Office, but for the town of Clinton itself. And they said, look, this crash just happened, and these 5 guys just ran into the woods. Now, there's not a lot of woods there, y'all. There's a couple houses here and there, but the high school I graduated from is like 200 yards to the right. So they're panicking and they run. Now, Brian Risen, he ran all the way up the street until he got to what we call Plank Road, which is the main street in Clinton, and it runs dead through the center of town all the way to Highway 10. But where he came up the hill, there was an old gas station on the left, the mobile station, and it's been closed forever. But across the street was a car wash and another little store. When Joel Odom and them, I think he told me he was riding with Jordan Charlet, who again, the Charlets, Uncle George Charlet, his daddy was my daddy's best friend, and I called their mama Aunt Sue, but they were riding together and they got the response, and then they see Risen at the car wash, and Joel said they got out on him and drew down on him, et cetera, and he complied. They arrested him and or detained him, if you will, but advised him it was rice, and he wouldn't say dick. He wouldn't say anything. So the rest of the guys, y'all, are So that the Joel and them got Brian Risen at 5:29 p.m. And when they pulled up, before they arrested him, they saw he was trying to get a ride back to Baton Rouge, right? And then they arrested him. But meanwhile, Brown and Eldridge Thompson and Brian Williams came out of the woods on Feliciana Drive. Again, not far from the crash scene, and they roll up on a guy that's working in his yard. Not in his yard, as Ike Roberts. And now my family's known his family forever. The long time, born and raised in Clinton, and he was 55 years old at the time. So he was just about 10 years younger than my daddy. And my daddy's known, I called him about it, and he said, yeah, of course I knew Mr. Ike also is what I called him, but he's just a really good guy, all right? So they at 5:30 p.m. Mr. Ike was in his shed working on a gate for a horse stall, and his wife Sharon was inside their home. And Mr. Ike said that Gregory Brown approached him shirtless, and he was sweaty and out of breath, and he said, "Hey man, I'll pay you some money to drive me and my 3 friends to Baton Rouge." And Ike was like, I'm not going to do that. But again, Ike lived there his entire life, and he knew everybody, but he didn't know these guys, right? But they were like, "Come on, man, but we'll give you $400, or we'll give you $500." Ike's like, "No, bro, I'm not driving you to Baton Rouge," and then they said, "We'll give you $1,000." And he was like, "No, I'm not driving to Baton Rouge. Get off my property." And they're like, "We'll give you $1,200." And he said, "No." So then Eldridge Thompson and Brian Williams grabbed a rope, and they attacked Ike, and they were trying to tie his hands, but Ike was fighting him. He was a big, strong country guy, right? And while they were fighting, they were attempting to rope him, his hands, they saw his 1990 gray Ford diesel pickup truck, and they were like, "Look, dude, just give us the keys." And Ike was like, "The keys are in the truck. Get out of here. Just leave me alone." Basically, he doesn't know what's going to happen, right? You're trying to tie me up. And so one of the guys goes to the truck, but guess what happened? they couldn't start it because it was a diesel truck, and then they didn't know how to start it. So when they couldn't start it, Brown got like super pissed, and he flew into a fit of rage. And what does he do? He picks up a 16-ounce Craftsman claw hammer, and then him and Thompson and Williams began to beat Ike with the hammer. Y'all, they tied a rope around his neck, and Thompson and Williams held him down while Brown began to beat Mr. Ike. And then, look, Joel said they beat him severely, and they hit him repeatedly in the head. Boom, 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 with a claw hammer, y'all, and his arms. Now, he's trying to defend himself naturally, right? He's got his arms up, but they're just beating on him. And while this is going on, Thompson and Williams let go of Ike, and they ran back to the truck, and they were trying to get it started again, and they were able to get it started. And they told Brown, like, come on, man, let's go. And Brown was like, he was too busy beating on Ike with the hammer. And so they left. They haul ass in the truck. When Brown was done with him, they had beat him, like I said, repeatedly. He had a depressed skull fracture. He had a concussion. He had a broken left arm and a broken left hand. And his forearm required surgery, and they had to put a plate and 7 screws in his arm to repair it. And the beating was so bad that a portion of Mr. Ike's right ear was torn off from the force of the claw hammer, right? And you know, he would end up spending 3 or 4 days in the hospital, but he also is now became permanently disabled in his left hand, can never use it again.
Hey y'all, let me tell you about Gobble. All Gobble meal kits are pre-prepped. That means less work for you and less waste in your kitchen. Their meal kits include everything you need so you can save time at the store or just skip that trip entirely. I got the box in and I had 3 different meals. I had a Kung Pao chicken, crispy fish tacos, and a beef bourguignon, however you say it. But let me tell you about the classic beef bourguignon. Look, it came with beef pot roast and a beef broth concentrate, red wine demi-glace, cremini mushrooms, cipollone onions, mashed potatoes, baby carrots, and rosemary thyme butter. It was so easy to make. Literally like 15 minutes it took Cindy. And let me tell you something, and all the dishes were fire, but this thing was like a taste explosion in my mouth. It's just unreal. We've got to spend more time together and more time doing the things we love because everything came in this one single box right to my door. So see what a difference Gobble will make for your household. Right now, they're offering my listeners a fantastic limited time deal. You get $120 off across 4 boxes plus free shipping and free cookies. And let me tell you, those cookies, I ate one that was sin baked and it was delicious. Go to gobble.com/reallife. That's GOBBLE.com/real-life for $120 off your first 4 boxes. This offer is not available on the home site, so don't miss out. This is genius. It's taste explosions in your mouth like you never had. Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. The busy holiday season is here, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful with incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts to spark joy, wonder, delight, and that's exactly what I wanted feeling. Hey, y'all, I ordered a super cool piece. It's a candle with a sculpture of LSU's Tiger Stadium on top of it. And each officially licensed laser cut wooden replica features up to 4 layers of detail, creating a bird's eye view of a specific football field, seating section, and more. And every label includes your stadium's name, the team's logo, and school location. And it has a coconut, soy, vegan wax infused with sandalwood smell that creates tailgates and touchdowns scent profile, reminiscent of game day. It's invigorating like fresh cut grass and nostalgic like smoke from a pre-game grill, and calming like the crisp autumn air of a new semester on campus. Y'all, I love it. I have it at the base of my TV, and I'm ready to watch the Tigers play on Saturday night, right? Uncommon Goods. Look, when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. And many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches. So shop now before they sell out this holiday season. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the U.S. They have the most meaningful, out of the ordinary gifts anywhere. They even have gifts you can personalize. From holiday hosts and hostess gifts to the coolest finds for kids, to hits for everyone from the book lovers to diehard sports fans. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, not the same old selections you can just find anywhere. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $3 million to date. So to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/RLRC. That's uncommongoods.com/RLRC for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary.
Because of these idiots. So Brown is still beating on him. Thompson and Williams haul ass in Mr. Ike's truck. And Brown was like, oh, fuck, at some point, and he stops beating Ike, and he begins to run after the truck. Basically, I think his homies just hauled ass and left him, right? And Brown's starting to run after the truck, and when he did that, Mr. Ike ran inside his house, and he said he last saw Brown chasing after the truck, running down Feliciana Drive, toward the home of a lady named Miss Myrtle Roberts, who was his mother and his next door neighbor. So Mr. Ike, beaten, skull crushed, arms destroyed, and everything else, was able to make it inside. And he told his wife to call 911, and then he collapses, y'all. So again, now this is a fluid situation. The cops have already been made aware of the crash that happened. They don't know. Oh, they also been made aware of the shooting in Rileyville, where the other Mr. Thompson, got shot in the arm when he was fighting with the bad guy. But this call comes out from Mr. Ike's wife, and they're like, hey, my husband's been beat, and they're headed towards mother-in-law's house. And so it goes out, and one of the guys that got the call, now remember, you got the Clinton police responding to the shooting down in Rileyville, you got police officers responding to the crash, you got the other idiot that Joel and them got arrested at the car wash trying to get a ride to Baton Rouge, but Lieutenant Billy DeMoss. Now, Billy and I grew up together. I think he was my second oldest brother's age, but I've known him my entire life. He still lives in Clinton, and he's married to a great lady named Donna, and she and I used to work together at Dixon Correctional Institute. But Billy gets the call. He knows Ike's truck hit and been there forever, and they still own. He and his wife own Frog Skin Graphics on Plank Road right outside of Clinton to this day. So he's no longer in law enforcement, but anyway. So he gets the description, and they put out the description of a Mr. Ike Roberts' truck over the dispatch radio, and that it was being driven by two black males. And around 6:06 p.m., a reserve deputy, Christopher Charlet, who has got to be one of the kids of Jordan and them, Uncle George's. I think Uncle George had died shortly after that, and he was having surgery at Lane Hospital. But anyway, I'm not sure. I'm sure I've met Christopher, but he was a reserve deputy. He didn't have any lights in his vehicle, but he knew Ike Roberts' truck, and he drove towards. He hears it on the radio, and he drives towards Plank Road, which I told y'all is the main drag through Clinton, and he sees the truck but it's 5 to 6 miles outside of Clinton on Plank Road, and it turned on 959. Now that is, if you go out of Clinton headed towards Baton Rouge, 959 is one of the side roads you can take and come up through the middle of Baton Rouge. But Charlet, the reserve deputy, was driving his personal vehicle, and he couldn't. There was not many people had cell phones back then, y'all, and he heard about Ike Roberts' truck. He sees it. He sees the two black males driving it, but he doesn't have any way to call in and say that he's chasing it, right? But and I guess he had the scanner, but not a police radio per se. But he followed him, and he followed him up 958, and they stopped Ike's truck on by some houses on 958, and Charlet told a resident to call 911, and he actually was able to use his firearm and arrest Thompson and Williams, who gave up. They didn't even fight, right? But so Charlet called the Clinton police at 6:08 p.m. and told them that he had them in custody. All right, now let's back up. Meanwhile, all this is going on. Everything's fluid at one time. Look, this doesn't happen in Clinton, Louisiana, all right? I mean, I could tell you a handful of murders before this time that I knew in my entire life. And this is an ongoing situation. They don't know that it's all connected. The shooting in Rileyville, the car crash, getting the guy at the car wash. Then Mr. Ike Roberts is almost dead. That call comes in, and Charlet gets him up on 959 and arrests him. But meanwhile, Gregory Brown, y'all, is still on the loose, and he's the one that did the most severe beating of Mr. Ike. But guess what? Gregory Brown wasn't from Clinton, and he didn't know the town. And so he's hiding out on Feliciana Drive, but he's desperate, right? What do you want to do? I want to get out of town. And he's desperate for some kind of transportation, some kind of ride to get out of town. And like I told you, but before he went inside his house, Mr. Ike Roberts saw Brown approaching the home of Miss Myrtle Roberts, who was a widow at the time, y'all, and 85 years old. So Brown attempts to steal Miss Roberts' green 1991 Ford pickup truck, but he wasn't able to do so because the doors were locked. And when he's trying to get in the truck, he actually leaves a bloody fingerprint on the driver's side door handle. And later on, when state police, everybody comes in and works it, they're putting they know it's this massive ongoing crime scene, and they get the DNA off the bloody fingerprint off the truck, and later on it comes back that the DNA had both Brown's DNA and Mr. Ike Roberts' DNA, and the print itself matched Brown's left ring finger. All right, so Brown's trying to break into Miss Myrtle Roberts' truck, and then he's like, fuck it, I got to do something else. And so he goes to the house and he kicks in the back door. When he does this, he's not thinking about leaving the blood on the handle of the truck. When he kicks in the door, he left a muddy shoe print on the back of the door and a smear of blood on the outside of the door frame and doorknob. Guess what? We got Brown's DNA. All right. Later on, however many years later, when all this evidence comes back, I'm just telling you, there's a reason I'm telling you all this. How about that? So he's leaving his, you got Mr. Ike who can ID him. You got his bloody DNA mixed with Mr. Ike's on Miss Myrtle Roberts' truck. Then he kicks in the back door and he leaves more blood on the outside of the door frame, which comes back to him. But it doesn't stop him. He goes inside And Miss Roberts standing there. She's 85 years old, y'all. And this winter, he grabs her and then throws her to the ground. And when he did that, he broke her wrist. And he was like, give me the car keys. Give me the truck keys. Give me the truck keys. And Miss Roberts she's laying on the floor with a broken wrist. And she like, I don't know where they're at. And she wasn't able to give them to him, y'all. So what happens? Brown begins to ransack the house looking for him, okay? And Miss Roberts was on the ground, injured, while Brown's tearing up her house. And he's going through drawers and everything else. Well, guess what else he's doing? He's leaving blood all through the house. And later on, once again, it would come back to be his DNA, okay? But guess what? He couldn't find the keys. And then it was like, fuck it, and I'm leaving. But before he left, almost everybody back then had landlines. Like hardly anyone had a cell phone in 1998. He grabs the phone on the wall and he rips it off the wall so she can't call and get help, right? So he leaves. Now, Joyce Lepenis, that's the family. Actually, the related to Billy DeMoss, the lieutenant I told you about, and but she was a friend of the Roberts family, and she went over to check on her, and she finds Miss Roberts on the floor inside the home just minutes after her attack, and of course they took Miss Roberts to the hospital. And emerged in an ambulance. Actually, they took him. It was so fluid and so going on. By the time the ambulance got there, they got Mr. Ike and now his mama, and they put him in the same ambulance and they took him to the hospital. All right, Brown is in a world of shit now, right? And he's done all this damage and all these robbery attempts, and now he's pissed. So he moves on to the next house on the street, on Feliciana Drive. And y'all, this is a horrible story anyway, but this is where it really gets bad, okay? And this house was owned by Mr. William and Miss Ann Gay, and they were 62 years old. And Mr. William had worked his entire life at Georgia Pacific and Copolymer. Now, that was the paper mill, y'all, in basically in between East and West Feliciana Parish, where a lot of people worked. And that area up there is really rural, and we still grow trees there to this day. And it employed so many people for so many years, and I think it's closed down now. But anyway, he worked there his entire life, right? And then hits his retirement, and he's been married to Miss Ann for 45 years. And y'all, she was 60 years old and a registered nurse, and they were good people, all right? They had 3 grown children, and they had lived in their 2-bedroom house at 12286 Feliciana Drive for only approximately 1 year. They downsized, the kids are grown and gone. When this monster comes up to them, they were actually sitting on their patio having a drink, and Miss Ann was cooking a roast in the oven, right? So they're just living good, clean lives. So y'all, the guy that Jonathan Booth, who got shot during the initial fight in Rileyville, when he went inside the trailer, and they says, no, the little man's not here, and with Mr. Thompson, the correctional officer, he goes back outside and gets a firearm. They fight. Both of them end up getting shot. So he ends up running away, but he hides in a house on Raleigh Street. And Miss London, who came home, find him hiding in her house, and she attempted to give him medical assistance for the gunshot wound. And around 10 o'clock, she called Booth's mother. Now, she actually knew Booth. Then, like I said, Booth was hiding in her house. She gives him medical assistance, and she calls Booth's mom. It's like, hey, he's here, and he's shot, and I'm trying to take care of his wound. And both Booth's mama and sister were listening, and they said, look, you need to call the police, right? So she did, and the police came to her apartment, and it was only about a mile away from the crash scene, y'all, where Miss Sarah Cheney, they ran over her Camry. And so the police respond, and they make the arrest. Let's fast forward. Now, between 9:50 p.m. and 10 p.m., the Baton Rouge Fire Department and city police responded to reports of a car that was engulfed in flames in the 1400 block of Emma Street. Now, again, this is 45 minutes away, y'all, from Clinton. So what do? They roll up, they put out the fire. And unfortunately, when they put out the fire, they see their two badly burned bodies inside the vehicle. And it was a red 1993 Ford Escort. So detectives are called to the scene naturally, and they run the license plate number, even though it was burned up, on the Ford Escort, and discovered that the car belonged to William and Ann Gay from Clinton, right? When they took the body, and I don't know which one of y'all, or actually it was William Gay, when they took the body from the rear seat of the vehicle, and they were able to, to search him, look through what was left of his clothing, they found a driver's license that belonged to William Gay, and that was still in his wallet in his pants pocket. And later on, they worked it as all crime scenes are worked. The autopsy showed that Mr. William Gay had been shot 3 times, once in the chest and twice in the abdomen or the stomach. And the same thing when they took Miss Ann Gay out and they took her to the autopsy. They found she had been shot 2 times also, once in the neck and once in the stomach. And all these shots had been at very close range, y'all, and in that they could tell that because of the tattoo or the stiffling. When you shoot somebody up close, you get not only does the bullet come out of the firearm, but the burnt gunpowder comes out at the end of the barrel, and if you're close enough, it'll actually embed in the skin and leave what we call tattooing. So back to it, on the day of, around 10:30 p.m., the Baton Rouge PD calls the law enforcement in Clinton and say, hey, we got a William and Ann Gay here that have been murdered, and their car has been burned up. Now, when they got the phone call, the Clinton, both the sheriff's office and the Clinton PD were still investigating this whole huge crime spree I've told y'all about, right? So they didn't know that the Gays were gone. And so they actually went to their house, and again, that was at 12286 Feliciana Drive, and they found the garage door open, and they found the door leading from the patio to the kitchen was open, and an unopened can of beer and an overturned glass of wine on the patio. And then guess what? The roast was burning now in the oven, right? So at the time Mr. William and Miss Ann Gay's bodies were discovered, Gregory Brown was the only guy that was left out of these shitheads that the cops hadn't got yet, right? Like I said, Booth had been found wounded and bleeding inside Miss London's home, and then Risen and Thompson and Williams had all been in the custody of the Clinton police for several hours. On the next day, October 5th, 1998, the Clinton police visited Mr. Ike in the hospital, Mr. Ike Roberts, and they showed a photo lineup, and guess what? Mr. Ike was all the beating and the concussion and the crushed skull and everything else. He was able to pick Gregory Brown as his attacker from the photo lineup. Y'all know that's a 6-pack, and they would have had his photograph, and they get 5 other photos that look just like him, and would have told Mr. Ike, hey, we don't want you to make any guess. But if there's someone you recognize in this photo as your attacker, let me know. And he immediately picks them out, y'all. And guess what? He did it. He did it. Not only did he did it, he told the cops, he said, look, I distinctly remember that this guy had only one good eye. And so the Baton Rouge police, what they do then, they go and they get a warrant for Gregory Brown's arrest, all right? And that was on October 5th, 1998, based primarily upon Mr. Ike Roberts picking him out of the photo lineup as his attacker, and the witness statements that he was seen approaching the gay's residence after leaving Miss Myrtle Roberts' home. The police then do what they do. They're going to hunt him, right? So they go to Brown's primary residence, which is on Bam Street in Baton Rouge, which he lived there with his wife. They'd been married for 5 months and their infant daughter. But he wasn't home. Well, shit, if I was him, I wouldn't have been home either. And then on October 6th, 1998, 2 days after the murders, the detectives learned that Brown also had another residence at 4747 Frey Street in Baton Rouge. So instead of just going up and knocking on the door, they get a search warrant for that residence, right? And they roll up on it, in force, in mass. This guy is a stone cold killer, obviously. And they roll up on him, and when they get there, they find Brown's father, who was they found Brown's father, who had a Pop-A-Lock employee, trying to unlock a Chevrolet Camaro that was parked behind the house. Y'all remember Pop-A-Lock? That's, you lock your shit in the car. You had to call them out. They charged you like $150 to get your keys out, and that was a big deal back in the day. But the officers find them in the backyard. They serve the search warrant on the house, and they go in the house, and they find it's almost empty of anything. The only thing I think they found were a broom and a mop that were in the living room area, and the house had been totally sanitized. Why, right? So they start to talk to the neighbors, and they're working in the neighborhood, trying to find out more information. And one of the neighbors tell the detectives that Brown's father, the guy that was in the backyard of Pop-A-Lock, had already made 2 trips to the house and removed basically everything from the inside. But during the search, the detectives discovered a trash can sitting on the front porch. And guess what? Inside the trash can, they discovered 2 pieces of duct tape and a telephone with a smear of blood on the handset, which was the smear of blood, once again, would later come back to be matched to Brown's DNA. And a piece of the gray telephone cord that had been cut. And the telephone cord was consistent to the cord found binding the hands of Ann Gay and in the backseat of the vehicle near the body of Mr. William Gay. Crazy, right? I mean, it's good police work. Stuff's going on, but there's a problem. Brown is still on the run. And on December 23rd, 1998, a confidential informant called Deputy U.S. Marshal Brent Ballard and told him that Brown was in the Baton Rouge area to visit his wife and child. And the CI, or confidential informant, said that Brown was hiding inside a single-story, white and pink house to the right of 6360 Osborne Street in Baton Rouge. And so what do the detectives do? They go get a search warrant, and they're going to roll up in force. All the stuff is coming together, and they got to get him into custody before he kills someone else. So they go to the judge. Judge gives them the search warrant, and they roll up en masse, surround the residence, kick the door, and guess what they found? Brown was hiding. Y'all, he had been on the run for 82 days at this point. So they never gave up, all right? And they got him on July 22nd, 1999, an East Baton Rouge Parish grand jury indicted Brown for the October 4th, 1998 first-degree murders of Mr. William and Miss Ann Gay. And they specified that the first-degree murder charges were based on RS 1430A and 1 and 3. Y'all, this is a death penalty case, all right? So, that after, on a first-degree murder case, of course, the warrant would have stood, but you still have to take it to a grand jury because it's such a serious charge. And so now they've gotten all the DNA back, and they get the secret grand jury, and they go in, they present this whole shit show of crimes that they've done. And more importantly, though, that the DNA and everything that Brown had left through his murderous trail, including the gays being burned up in the vehicle, right? So again, he's charged with first-degree murder, and on May the 1st, 2002, Brown goes on trial for his life for capital murder, right? And I'm gonna stop it there. I'm gonna tell you the rest next week. It's really, really disturbing. But if anybody deserves to die and be on death row and be executed, Gregory C. Brown is that piece of shit, right? So, real life, real crime stuff, y'all. You got a lot of stuff going out. I'm gonna be telling some of these old personal stories, and this one I've been thinking about forever. And I just actually came from Clinton today, and I'm just like, and I drove down Silliman Street, past the Marston house, right where the crash occurred, and past their houses and everything else. And so I wanted to tell you the story, but there's more to it, and I want you to hear it, and we'll finish it next week. But real life, real crime, I want to thank everybody for listening, liking, and sharing, and following. Every Tuesday, y'all, you're going to get an original real life, real crime episode. I know I get comments every day. People are like, "Oh, there's no more original real life, real crime." Well, that's not true. I drop them on Tuesdays, and yes, it's original real life, real crime on Tuesdays are separate and different than the real life, real crime daily show, which comes out on Monday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So don't forget, it's two totally different shows. I love doing the daily show. It's awesome with Mike and Jim. We have a good time doing it, and it's very interesting. But I know it's not what my OG lifer signed up for. So some of you love that show, and I get it. Some of you don't. You just want these stories, and you're going to continue to get them. I just think it gets lost in the confusion because we're dropping 5 days a week. The people think, oh, they're tuning in, and it's all on the same feed, y'all, on the same distribution channel or channels. And so you go to listen on Wednesday or Monday or Thursday. If you don't listen, if you subscribe to Original Real Life Real Crime, you will automatically get the original Real Life Real Crime episode downloaded to your phone. So you'll know it'll be there and you can get it first. But go listen to the Daily Show too, which is awesome. And I want to thank my Patreon and convicts and Apple subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing. If we owe you something, let us know. I hope you enjoyed your episode Sheriff's Office I put up a couple weeks ago. I'm going to be putting up another one in the next 2 weeks for y'all. So enjoy your benefits. Today, you're going to get this one a little bit late, naturally. But normally you get it, or you're still going to get it commercial free. But normally you get it earlier than this. But next week's you'll get before Monday. All right. Now, SWIM, someone who isn't me. That's the acronym, SWIM, someone who isn't me. Guess what? It's a new podcast by Woody Overton, and it's not going to be true. Well, there's going to be a lot of crimes in it, but it's not necessarily a true crime podcast. It's more society and culture, and it's going to be crazy stories that someone who isn't me have lived through their lives, and we're about to put that out on blast. And if you like to hear me tell stories, that's all I'm going to be doing, is telling stories from youth, from the first time SWIM ever got into trouble to all the way through his life and adulthood and everything else. And SWIM, someone who isn't me, a podcast by Woody Overton, produced by Envision Podcast Studios. And again, I just got back from Wisconsin, y'all. Y'all know about the LOPA hunt, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency. I was so blessed to get to be with Miss Missy Jewell and her son Jacob, Jack, who it was Jack's brother, and her other son Reese, who was killed, and they were able to use his organs. Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency stepped in and helped the family, and his kidney went to another young man, Jacob, who I got to guide on numerous hunts in Wisconsin. So we had the families there together. It's a beautiful thing. One family whose loved one died, the other family whose loved one is alive because of LOPA, the Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency, and people becoming organ donors. You don't have to be from the state of Louisiana to sign up to be a hero. You can be from Idaho, right? If you want to become an organ donor, go to lopa.org, take 2 minutes, fill out the questionnaire or whatever it's called, and become an organ donor. Be a hero, y'all. People are dying every single day waiting on these transplants, and I was so blessed to get to know the young man and the family, naturally, that Reese is the hero who was an organ donor, whose kidney went to Jacob, and I think it was like 6 or 7 years, Jacob told me, and he's doing good, y'all. I mean, he's alive because of that. So go sign up to be an organ donor. Don't forget about our Real Life, Real Crime Community app. That's where, if you're going to send me a message, you either email me at woody@realliferealcrime.com or go into the app. I always check the Real Life, Real Crime Community app first, y'all, because I have so many different social media pages, like all the Facebook pages, the crew page. I think we're over 42,000 members just in it alone. But y'all keep sending me information about these cases to all these different pages I have, and sometimes I don't get there for a week or two to check them. If you make it real easy, if you just email me, and if you're going to ask me to look at a case, I'm going to ask you to please provide me with everything that you have, news articles, and if you have the case file or whatever. Otherwise, we're wasting each other's time. I get the requests every day. Oh, look at my Uncle Jack's story, but you don't say anything about who your Uncle Jack was or where they lived or anything else, right? So help me. I promise to try to help everyone. It doesn't mean I'm going to work your case, but if I can give you some advice or something, I will, all right? So it's important. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but you can check out my TikTok. It's Real Life, Real Crime. Of course, we have Instagram and all that good stuff. And tune into the Daily Show, people. It's fire in its own way. But next week, Swim, Someone Who Isn't Me, is coming out. Podcast by Woody Overton. And I'm your host, Woody Overton, the host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And until next time or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder Bayou. Peace.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?